Yeah, I love that. So essentially flip the idea on the head and say, instead of selling 1,000 leads that everybody can get, I will generate a specific list for you. You'll be the only one getting that. So Agam is like, you probably don't know this because he looks very young, but Agam is in his early 30s. He just behaves like a child who's 7 years old, right? Just to put things...
Early 30s, 29.
Aren't you? Oh, sorry, 29. So you're in your very, very early 30s.
Don't say that word.
Today we're going to talk about a CRO. Well, not about a CRO specifically, but something that will help the lives of CROs everywhere tremendously. So Agam, what is a CRO?
Chief Revenue Officer.
Terrific. A CRO in most B2B tech companies, which is what we're going to discuss in this podcast, is the person in charge of the revenue stream of the company. So there's marketing and there's sales, and revenue is kind of in charge of everything, including customer success over there at the end to the right. So the person who's in charge of making sure the revenue stream of the company keeps on going. Now, in most companies, there's this contention between marketing and sales. Let's assume this is the VP marketing and this is the VP sales. So the VP marketing will tell the VP sales, I'm bringing you leads all the time and you're not closing my leads. And the VP sales will tell the VP marketing, oh, your leads are shit, I can't close them, yada. So this contention between the VP marketing and VP sales can be solved by one thing and one thing only, Agam. And what is that thing?
Before that, I want you to make a puppet show about like startups.
But I think that I'll be a great puppeteer.
Yeah, it could work. I could say it working. It might be better than this cast, but yeah. So what was the question? What's the solution?
What is the solution to the contention between sales and marketing?
Some nonviolent communication.
Yes. Also, better leads. And this is what we're going to talk about in this discussion. Better leads. There is this company called CyberLeads. And what CyberLeads does is super simple.
I love that.
They go through public references of funding of specific companies. They essentially go in and they say, okay, so this company raised some money. This is the CEO. I'm going to enrich you with a little bit of data. What things are they likely to offer? Yada, yada, the amount of funding, whatever. And then they're going to take this data, aggregate it inside of a database, and sell you that database. And here is the interesting thing. Why would you think that this is the solution for the contention between sales and marketing? I'll explain. It's a rhetorical question. It's a rhetorical question. Do not answer. I will speak now. So the reason why better leads are the solution for the contention between sales and marketing is because marketing will pay for a set of leads it's very high quality, and sales will be happy because they're closing leads. So marketing will have a clear understanding of what they need to do in order to bring in quality leads because they're just buying them from some source. We'll talk about whether marketing even has a role or not in this a little bit later. And then sales will take those leads and close them. Everybody happy, including the CRO. Now, why is this an interesting up for grabs cast idea? I think that in most technical companies, think about anybody that does a vector database, or think about anybody that does any type of like hardware or like hardware software combo device. Anybody that works with factories, anybody that works with the government, anybody that works with a lot of like hardcore problematic fields, problematic in the sense that it's not as easy to get to the buyer as it is in other places. If you can get highly qualified lists with intent, for example, in this company's situation, what they did is they'll say people who are likely to outsource, right? So it's good for like agencies and freelancers and contractors and stuff like that, right? What if you are able to get highly targeted lists for specific industries or for specific companies, and then you can double down on those leads and kind of sell them for profit? And I want to show another example, which is even more niche than what we saw right now. And this example is Wappalyzer. Wappalyzer is a website. They go in, they grab all the technologies from the front end of a website, and then they generate kind of an overview of what in that website. The flip side of that, and that's where things are super interesting, is that they ended up creating a lead list product just like the Get CyberLeads guys. Why is this amazing? What they understood eventually is that they can sell the lists of people who have specific technologies of the website so people can kind of use those lists to generate business. I know a guy who uses this lead list mechanism by Wappalyzer for targeting Shopify merchants who have a specific type of analytics platform on their website. And they basically have a whole campaign saying, if you have Shopify and this analytics product on your website, has like specific messaging for it, whatever, you should get my Shopify app, right? And that's his main source of generating traffic for his Shopify ad. for Shopify ads, he directly outreaches. He does a cold outreach sequence to all of those users. And I know for a fact it generated at least, it's in the dozens of customers just from this specific iteration. And he has like a $4.99 per month price tag on his app. So, you do the math. Super, super highly targeted qualified leads. Now, and this is where the money, kind of the kicker comes in. I think I said that twice already today, but this is something that I'm super excited about. What if you could make amazing lists for any specific industry that you want? And by amazing, it needs to have 3 different characteristics. An amazing lead list has 3 different characteristics. The first one is completeness. It needs to have the specific piece of information you need in order to contact the person. If people don't answer an email in your industry, it needs to have a phone number. If they don't answer on a phone number, it needs to have a Slack associated with their account so you can DM them on Slack. Although that's against the terms of use for many industries, so don't. For many communities, so don't. It needs to have all the relevant information you need about that person collected from whatever sources you need. It needs to be complete. So that's number 1. Number 2, it needs to be with intent. So there needs to be some sort of reason this person or this company is on the list. In the Get CyberLeads situation, it's super simple. They have their funding happening recently. So this company are highly likely to outsource something, right? Because they now have money in the bank. That's number 2. And number 3, and potentially the most important factor about the lead list that you will be creating, they need to be hard to generate. And how to generate means that not everybody else can do that easily. What the CyberLeads guys did, they did something that is kind of trivial. I'll just go over the funding and add people to the database, right? But their lists are much more targeted than that. And I know that because I bought them with the company I worked for in the past. Essentially, they have a super, super deep kind of anchor point for the customers that they're targeting. It's usually for agencies and stuff like that. And you can immediately take action on that lead, reach out to them with all the bits and pieces you need for a good outreach message and just close them on the spot. Of course, I'm oversimplifying things, but I think this is kind of the core premise behind this whole notion. What I'd like you guys to do is think about the places where you can generate these lists for specific companies who work in specific industries and make some money with us.
First of all, I want a few ideas from you. Like, what would be like the top 2 or 3 ideas for such a list that you would do right now if you were one of the listeners? And second, I do have some extra questions. Like, if you're selling this to a lot of people, let's say the CyberLeads, I would feel like I wouldn't want to necessarily buy it because I know that 100 other agencies are also buying the same lead list, and it's gonna be saturated, that lead. So how do you solve that?
So that's exactly the how to get part of the list side of things. So how to get from the Wappalyzer perspective, for example, they know how to fingerprint a lot of the different technologies that happen on the website. Now,
I don't think you're understanding my question. Like, if I'm buying the list, there are 100 other people buying the same list, right? So we're all targeting the same leads.
Correct. So
doesn't that reduce the interest that I have in that lead list as a buyer?
I think that's what, now I understand the question better. So I think that's where my example of the guy with the Shopify app comes in super well. It's really about the specific analysis that you make of the market. So if you think, and Wappalyzer by now is flooded, I completely agree with that, but if you find within the specific lead list generator thing that you have, the specific subset of companies that you have a specific offering that is better for them, for example, again, a Shopify app that is good for Shopify merchants that have a specific analytics platform on the website. If you can do that, then I think it doesn't really matter that other people are on the same list because you're not fighting the same fight. And for freelancers and contractors, I completely agree that this is a problem, right? Because every time a company comes on that list, 100%, it doesn't stop Get CyberLeads from selling, I think, like very, very well. Because smart marketers look at those leads and then say, I know that it's flooded, other people are kind of looking at it, but maybe if I take those 1,000 leads and I narrow them to only companies who raised like their pre-seed round or their seed round or their A round or their B round, and then I can kind of double down on that, or maybe only on specific industries, or maybe on...
So again, I have like an idea for that, and it might be like version 2.0 of this. So why wouldn't you create a productized service where your client tells you what leads they want, and then you create a list specifically for them. So not a lot of people get the same list.
So not a lot of people get the same list. Can you double down on how that will work in practice?
So CyberLeads, they're giving everyone that's doing, that's getting funding. But let's say I'm only interested in like a niche inside of that list, right? So I could buy the services of this company that's providing the list, and I would say, this is my ICP, this is my ideal customer profile. Give me a list that's specific to that, tailored to that. Generate something just for me. So not all the people are getting the same list. Then I would pay a lot more for that list. And also not a lot of people are going to get the same list. And it's going to be more targeted towards.
Yeah, I love that. So essentially flip the idea on the head and say, instead of selling 1,000 leads that everybody can get, I will generate a specific list for you. You'll be the only one getting that. So you can pay a premium for that as well. That's super interesting, because I think that might be an upsell for the CyberLeads guys, exactly because of the situation that you're referring to. Essentially, if you say, even is it like, I'll do a newsletter, you're a newsletter guy. So I'll do a newsletter which every week I'll deliver the top 100 companies raising funding, which you can approach them. But if you want to dive deeper into that and get a little bit more a personalized list, you will pay a premium for it, essentially. Love it. Let's talk a little bit about...
Yeah.
Now, let's, because we're already short on time, let's talk more about the specific niches in which this will work. I want to give 2 examples. The first example is kind of stupid, but I think that a lot of DevOps people will appreciate it. If you have ever needed to do an upgrade of a Terraform module, right? If you ever had to do an upgrade of any type of infrastructure level thing, you know that it takes a long...
We feel sorry for you, first of all.
Exactly, we feel sorry for you. If you ever had to migrate from a specific Angular version to another Angular version, from Angular to React, from again whatever to whatever, I think, and there are some like Gen AI products now that do that, like second.pre whatever. There's a couple of them now. We talked about them in another episode. But if you are a software consultancy and you want to get good projects, find migration projects, and then which you can kind of easily target by looking at websites that have older versions of this platform and offer this migration as a service. So that's number one. And I'm talking about every type of migration imaginable. This can also be, look for websites that have jQuery or old versions of WordPress, and then suggest to migrate to Webflow, right? Again, any type of consultancy, like old to new type migration. So that's number one.
So how do you find those leads?
Very easily. You go into Wappalyzer and you find them. Super easy.
Okay. So it's just Wappalyzer to an Airtable.
Right. But which actually is also against the terms of use. But it's not, without going into too much details, there's a lot of search engines for the web that allow you to find fingerprints of specific companies. So just use any of them and do that. Not super complicated. If anybody really, really wants in on this, just kind of hit us up and we'll talk a little bit more about it.
I have two ideas, 2 more examples. So one is a lot of services they sell to local businesses. So what you can do is scrape a lot of Google Maps data and figure out like what industry they're at, their website, and some extra contact information. A lot of people, for example, they do SEO for these local businesses and they want these leads in different like cities and places. So figuring out a data set for that could be really cool. And the second thing is GitHub. I think you can create a lead list for developer first stuff on GitHub, because everything is basically on GitHub and it's public. So you can basically get whatever information you want out of it and figure out, for example, what companies are working in a specific stack, how many contributors they have, how many open source projects they have, kind of create a data set of companies on GitHub. That could be very interesting. You're more into this right now, Tom, so you probably have more like saying on this, but those are my 2 ideas.
The bottom line is that, I agree, and I think that everything that has to do with I'm a developer tools guy, so everything that has to do with developer tools will speak to me. But I want to kind of go out of my depth for a moment and talk about companies that in a completely different space, right? I know of a cybersecurity company that did something super interesting. They scraped a list of companies who had specific configuration files left open on the internet. And they essentially said, and they sent a screenshot of those files to those companies over cold email and tell them, we found this on the internet. And then, and that's the kicker, right after that, they sent them a screenshot of their platform detection of this situation. And you will open it, like we found this on the internet. And in the specific screenshot, they had a menu item. And that menu item was, again, I'm paraphrasing, but was something in the lines of, we found 375 other exposed files on your website, right? And what they ended up receiving were many people coming back to them saying, what else did you find? What else is exposed? And this kind of solidified the deal there. It's a poor example because it's not super indicative, but it is, I think, reasonable for this discussion.
What would you sell for that type of company or service?
What do you mean?
Like, is that just a cool story? How is that connected to lists?
Oh, so they managed to get those lists by looking for those open files online. They actually did a Google search. So they looked for a specific pattern in a URL that has this specific file. I can just say it, WP login PHP. So the WordPress login page, super simple. And if you have that exposed, then, which by the way is a super major like no for WordPress security guys. But if you have that exposed, then they flagged it. And then they said, we found such and such other open exposed files on your website. And that kind of closed deals for them.
Okay. So you can also do like dynamic stuff by yourself. You don't always have to use Wappalyzer. Okay.
No. You should definitely not use Wappalyzer. You should use your own kind of methods for getting leads.
So lists, thumbs up for lists.
Yes, thumbs up for lists.